I make videos. Sam is my friend. He co-writes and he makes video games and other bullshit.
Welcome to the podcast, everyone. How's it going?
No, we're not using any of that. I'm just warming up.
Actually, you know what was really cool?
What?
Is while you were talking, my Bluetooth headphones just muted you and went like several sentences describing the low battery. It didn't normally. I'm used to headphones being like battery low, but it was just like the battery has reduced down to 10%. Please find a location to charge it. It's fucking obnoxious, actually.
Wow. That's awful.
Yeah, you were at like 2% volume, and I had to try and pick up based on context clues. I'm switching to my normal headphones now because I don't want that to happen again.
Engineers design a product that is easy to use, challenge impossible.
True. I hate engineers.
There should be a separate job description for engineer who makes a product usable. That should be like a specific job, you know?
Yeah.
In a lot of huge companies it is, right?
I mean, I think that's supposed to be all of them.
And that's the problem. Because then it's none of them.
I don't think that's how that works. I don't think it's like a superpower Incredibles thing where once every single engineer knows how to make a good product, they all cancel out like a fucking fraction.
No, what I'm saying...
And out comes Adobe Premiere Pro.
Okay, well, in Adobe specifically, no, that is actually just what happens. I have inside sources. But no, generally, people need to be specialized in things, I think, sometimes, whenever you have a company that is like hundreds of people large, all making one awful program. Personally, that's my opinion.
So you're inventing the idea of a lead developer?
No, I'm inventing the idea of a specialized developer whose job is to do one thing really good, like, say, make a UI that's not dog shit.
Like a UI designer of some kind.
Right. See, the thing about video games is that they need to be fun, and people need to like them, or they don't sell.
Right.
And so video games have this very specific problem on lock. Usually, UI, not so much lately. Generally, though, UIs in video games are pretty good, generally. Mm-hmm. And then, like, when's the last time you opened up, like, Excel and just tried to, like, add some numbers together?
Yeah, every day I wake up and marvel at the glory of Excel. It's like a fucking comforting pillow of a piece of software. It's so beautiful. No, I get what you're saying.
I don't understand how it's like, the thing about Excel is that it's actually really good if you know how to use it, but learning how to use it is like, I would rather pull all of my teeth out individually with like pliers.
Yeah, I think that by the time that there's a speedrunning league around how to use your software, you've probably fucked up.
Are you serious?
You don't know about the Microsoft Excel Esports League?
Fuck you.
About people like
fuck you.
Open up your web browser of choice right now and look up Microsoft Excel Esports League. There's actual head-to-head competitions about people who can do shit in Excel the most fastest.
How do you even benchmark this? What are the prompts?
That's a great question. I haven't checked in. Believe it or not, I have not watched much of the Excel Esports League.
Oh my god.
So that's not something I'm going to be able to answer off the top of my head.
Financial Modeling World Cup.
Hell yeah.
You cannot be serious.
They got a Wikipedia page and everything.
Expect exciting twists and turns, challenging cases.
Did you see the way Michael Evans handled that edge case?
Sponsored by HyperX. What do you mean sponsored by HyperX? Why do you need a fucking gaming headset to do fractions?
To lock in.
I'm glad I know this now, I guess.
Yeah, dude, they got like crazy motion graphics too. They do it on stage. I mean, you're probably looking at the pictures.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I fucking hate Excel. I hate it so much.
Yeah, I mean, so
welcome to the podcast.
If that's our in, I'm pretty happy with it.
Okay.
That was a beautiful moment of you learning and discovering something new about this world of ours.
Didn't you have actual topics this time around?
I did, but it really felt like you were baiting me into yelling about tool design again.
No, I think that's just our default state. I think that's just where we go.
I'm just constantly thinking about this. So this is the podcast where we pretend that we're going to talk about that one SpongeBob video you did every week and then veer off in a new direction.
Right.
This time, I actually last time wanted to ask you about what it was like returning to animation for videos after spending so much in Popsicle World. And specifically like fucking trying to animate in the style of Steven Hillenburg era SpongeBob. Seems like a lot.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because the latter half I consider a failure. As for the former, I'm glad you asked, because I didn't enjoy it. Next question.
Wow. All right. Shit. That was pretty simple. No, I'm digging in.
I don't know, man. You're gonna need to get more specific.
From the outside, it seemed like you started with excitement and optimism and hope in your eyes.
Oh yeah, that's how it always starts.
What changed it this time? What was the first roadblock that disillusioned you with the creative process and the idea of making things?
Remembering why I stopped animating, which is because I don't think it's fun to redraw the same thing hundreds of times. I don't enjoy that. But that's kind of the name of the game. And that's pretty much as deep as it goes, honestly. It's like once you get to drawing number 50, like I'm kind of done. Like I tried to get help. I got animators, for that one, who helped with all of like 3 shots in total. And nothing against them, but it's just like, timing and stuff. None of them were able to like hop on to the extent that others may have. It is what it is, and the help that they did give was very helpful. But I ended up doing like probably more than 90% of the animation in that video, which is why a lot of it looks bad. It's because I clocked out. I had a deadline, but yeah, I mean, as for like, I wanted to capture Hillenburg's not Hillenburg style, just the style of budget animation from that era. But I decided not to commit to it because here's the thing, right? It looks like shit, but not in an economical way. The result of why cartoons look like that is because all of the main poses, the keyframes, are done locally, and then all of the in-betweens are sent out to overseas animators who may not have timing for any of it and just have to wing it or just make completely new decisions because there's like a note maybe and that's it. So you just end up with like terrible timing, just like bad choices being made all the time by virtue of the pipeline. And I didn't want to do that because it was a lot of work to make it look bad. It looked bad enough already, in my opinion, and that was from making choices that saved me time.
And I was suggesting that you just rely on remote child labor, but you weren't having any of that.
Well, I mean, children need to be trained.
Yeah, that is true.
Again, it's about saving time. What was that bit you were going to do? You were talking about this forever, like a couple of years ago, where you wanted to create a narrative of like creating a development company, but then you just hired a bunch of childs.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna do this at some point, but
You've been saying this for years.
I'm gonna do it, and it's evolved over those years. But the idea is that like when I go back to making consistent game projects, I'm gonna do it under the guise of a studio that just kind of gets progressively worse with time because I need to save money. And so my initial pitch is like, I'm going to do it exclusively with child labor because I believe in providing opportunities for the youth,
right,
especially the orphans, right?
Right.
Because if you think about it, our company's kind of like the one big happy family they never had, right? And this is just kind of, progressively worse until obviously, a good thing can never last. I would be busted for my child labor practices and I'd have to choose a new tactic. And the escalation that I had in mind was like game studio staffed exclusively by registered sex offenders.
I haven't heard about this idea.
Listen, I'm not committed to it, but
you should be.
It's economical.
The question is how you would do it is my thing.
Right.
Firstly, how do you vet to only get sex offenders? Secondly, how do you typecast for that? Failing being able to actually get enough to run a studio.
Right.
I mean, because honestly, the former, I mean, that's an unlikely possibility considering that this is the games industry. You're probably like, you're spoiled for
You
choice.
probably get there by accident.
Yeah. You'd be lucky to find someone with a clean slate, but like, I don't understand how you could execute on this bit because you would need a lot of people in a room to pretend that they work for you.
Right. I mean, part of it could be like I just insist really hard in places that don't know that I'm doing a bit. Right.
Yeah.
Like going on a local news station, a local news television station, doing an interview about the cool work I'm doing, and then just out of nowhere insisting that I'm done with the child labor thing for real. I'm turning a new leaf, and I'm actually very excited to announce my new venture starting right here in insert city name here.
Right. But like still there's the question of like this only works if at some point you do have a space where you can show what you're doing, you know?
Well, like I'm doing like a Bungie VidDoc style thing.
Yeah, VidDoc.
VidDoc. Yeah, and I'm just like blocking out all their faces.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Just very, very short.
You should block out all their faces, mosaic blur them all, but still like have their full name, age, and address appear at the bottom of the screen whenever you show any of them.
Yeah, all of the computer screens are blurred, most of them because they have confidential information on them.
Some of them because, you know, old habits die hard, but...
Jesus Christ. So, oh man, how many times can we cross this line? How many times do we have to before it's acceptable?
What are you talking
Which is
about?
also a question that some of them ask.
Yeah, see that
I was speaking in comedic terms.
Okay. I didn't pick up on that. I went straight to option B.
Cool. But yeah, I don't know. The idea of doing cool how much more time we spent on the sex offender thing than the orphan thing, by the way. I don't know what that says about us. It says something. But yeah, I like the idea because it's been such a priorities. I've seen recently so many more examples of people leaning really hard people leaning hard into the mythology of like what it used to mean to run a game studio. I'm going. Listen, we're leaving that behind for a minute. But of people being like, we're making games the way that they used to be made, with a little bit of passion and a bedroom computers, and like same thing with like animation
and 80-hour work weeks
and
low pay,
but the passion. But yeah, it's like we're starting to see people like emulate the VidDocs and that kind of style of thing for platforms like TikTok. And the idea of just committing really hard in an indefensible direction for it is really appealing to me, because I don't see a lot of people playing around with that beyond like trying to sell an image that an audience will get on board with and buy their game because they're invested emotionally in the journey. It's a funny little space to be in.
You know, I'm pretty sure that the sex offenders thought that too for a while.
Jesus Christ. This is going to keep popping up like a jump scare. We're going to keep jumping back to that bit for one line and then moving on again.
I hope you can do that one day. It just sounds like a very difficult thing to accomplish on a shoestring budget logistically, even if you just went to like Fiverr and Craigslist or whatever.
I think it's doable, although it's definitely going to be easier with more resources.
It'll be hard and time consuming.
Like the dream is, even if we're just talking about Operation Child Labor, like the ideal way to do that bit is to like try and hire a child actor to go on like an interview show or something with me and get that footage of like, yeah, this is my concept artist.
Honestly, you know, probably one of the easiest things is if you had any contact with a school, you could just like speak to the computer lab or whatever, and then use the computer lab as a set. Just get a class of kids on the computers, film a bunch of B-roll of them, and say this is your development studio.
That is an alarmingly specific thing for you to say, because I used to teach an elementary school computer
so you
class
already have
in
connections.
a computer lab. Yeah. This was like one of the things I was thinking of, but you've described a very possible situation.
Yeah, well, you're already further along than most people would be, because most people can't just go to a school and say, "Can I use your kids for a bit?"
Yeah, especially not after very publicly stating that what the follow-up is going to be.
Well, no, you would have to not have done that yet. You would have to you'd have to do this part way, way in advance.
Yeah. Can you guys do me a favor and just forget all that shit we just said?
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that.
And neither did I. We're going to bury it.
No one's going to listen. No, listen, principals do not listen to this. I say, sweating bullets. I think it would be scummy for them not to know at some point, right? Like, you got to tell them what the plan is. You just need
because you do have to get the parents to sign release forms,
right? Like, you have to, like, admin. You just have to find a school admin who's chill with it. Which is, honestly, that's the biggest challenge of all of this. That is the single hardest thing to do, which is why having an existing connection is so vitally important.
Yeah. I don't actually think you want me to shout out your school on this one. Conversation is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Depends on where the school is at. If you were in LA when you did this, I don't know. Maybe. In fact, I think LA is one of the few places that you might get away with and be like, nah, you can put it in. That'd be funny.
Just say we're the official sponsor of your child labor racket, of your orphan labor racket, because you know who's had it too good for too long.
No. They're not the official sponsor. They're the what do you call it?
Venue.
No, what do you call it whenever it's like a company that serves whose job is to bring manpower. No, to bring manpower to an existing company.
A temp agency?
Like, we need more bodies. Yeah. They're the temp agency.
That's really cool. That's a really cool way to term an elementary school.
Well, I mean, it's functionally what they'd be doing in this little narrative you've created.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, this feels like a good idea. And I don't have any... And if that's the thing I want you to know, is that I don't have any, like, looming sense of dread as if there's someone standing behind me whenever I talk about it.
That's good.
It's really good. It's always helpful. The thing that concerns me is not figuring out the logistics of getting footage to support my narrative. It's like... if I want to take this kind of thing into a live setting, how hard do I commit? Because I've run into a number of times where, like, there are very funny things for me to have done live as part of a story.
Oh my God.
But it would make for miserable viewing live.
No, but no. But you could absolutely flip this into a way where it works. Like, could you imagine just like
a petting zoo live cam?
No. Well, no. I was thinking more like, what if you're just streaming some work and like you get a call on Discord and you're like, sorry guys, I have to take this, but you don't mute it, and it's like obviously a child on the other line asking for directions, and you are very unpleasant to them, but tell them stuff that sounds like it could be real advice.
Yeah, we're gonna have to let you go.
No, you tell him to let someone else go. Yeah. They're like the supervisor. No, so they're a little reluctant, but that's much easier to pull off in like a performance way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
you have to tell Jared that, I don't know,
he's not cutting it.
Jakey, he's not going to be coming back next week.
We're sending him back to the orphanage.
He's not going to be in GT after this. Sorry. He's going back to core.
He's not going to get his little orphan Annie moment. We're done with that. Yeah.
So SpongeBob, I don't know. I just like the animation is the thing that I enjoyed the least on that project, which I feel like I say every time I animate for any project, but you know, it's how it is.
Intentionally loaded question. When was the last time you enjoyed animating and why?
Oh, that's mean. That's a mean one. Well, there's a way to twist this into a positive though. It was whenever I did the aspect ratios video, the one that was in VR. And it's because it was in 3D, and that was fun because I wasn't drawing most of it. so that I could. What I've realized is that I like animating, but I don't like drawing usually, and I especially don't like drawing when it's the same fucking thing a million times. And so 3D frees me from that. I can focus on the part of animating that I do enjoy, which is posing, character acting, stuff like that.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, when you say that you hate animating, I was curious if it was like a specific part.
It is
that bothered you, because when you talk about animation, there's very much love there, except now on in retrospect, not about this specific thing.
Yeah, it's just like it's tough because for a long time I did actually think that I just fucking hated animating for real, full stop. I think we've talked about this before, but
yeah,
it was what I found out eventually is that no, I had optimized the fun out of doing it. But I'm naturally inclined to keep doing that with every project, because as a deadline creeps up, you start having to make decisions like that to get it out the door. But that's not what fun is. The 3D, you know, it just naturally removes a lot of those barriers. So long story short, I think that moving forward, I'm just going to transition to doing mainly 3D stuff if I'm not doing cardboard moving forward, because it's just easier and more fun and more interesting and exciting to me. And it's faster.
Huh. I was not expecting us to arrive there, but that's cool as fuck.
When Eli was walking me through and like teaching me Blender when I was working on the VR video, because I don't know if you know this, before I made that, I had never animated in 3D before, and I didn't know how to use Blender. I used that video. Shit. Yeah, that was a trial by fire moment. I bit off several magnitudes more than I should have with that one, because it wasn't just learn Blender and it wasn't just learn 3D animation. It was do both of those and also do something that Blender is not very good at, which is stereoscopic 3D VR rendering. But I did it, and it mostly worked.
Wait, so you were saying that you're gonna switch to 3D in future, but I'm curious how you're gonna translate your style, because at least when I think about it, it feels very, very rooted in 2D cartoon ass things.
I don't care.
Oh, okay. Well,
I mean, yeah, kinda. But like, I'm sorry, I remembered why I brought all that up now, which is just the funniest side that when Eli was teaching me all this, Eli graciously walked me through and is the reason that video got finished, because they nurtured me through the process. But yeah, as soon as I realized how easy it is to animate in 3D, especially whenever it's limited, they just laughed and were like, "Oh, you found out." Yeah, no, limited animation in 3D is cheating, basically. It's fucked up. Because all you have to do is animate the overshoot and then turn easing on, interpolation, and then create a keyframe right before the very last one. Then set it back to like stills only, and then you just tweak it a little bit, and there you go. That's a new frame. Done. Ship it out. It's fucking crazy.
I even 90% understood what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, it doesn't matter. The part that you need to understand is that it's just like the automation is so unbelievably easy to do in a 3D context that whenever the job is to get things done quickly, not in the best way possible, it is uniquely suited to making that happen. It's kind of insane.
That is delightful.
Like, if you don't want to get into the weeds and mess with fucking Bezier curves and like if you don't want to do that, it's way faster.
Yeah, it's fun. I've definitely also had moments of believing that I hated working in an entire medium and then realizing later, oh, no, it's just the one thing.
Yeah.
So I can relate on that level.
What's an example of that you've had? What's the time where you optimized the fun out of the fun thing you chose to do for a living?
Because the struggle that I'm coming up with is that a lot of times it feels externally inflicted, like the tools that I'm using are the thing that's fucking me. But there's also some level of I trap myself into only using those tools to make stuff. I'm specifically talking about Unity technologies. This will be a common theme. But yeah, it's like what those breaking points looked like to me was like, fuck it, I'm quitting. I'm going to become a librarian. I don't care. I'm so done.
Yeah.
I don't want to use a computer for anything else except Dewey Decimal System tracking. This is it.
I mean, everyone who's ever made a big project using a program made by Adobe can relate to that.
Yeah.
Programs that make you want to blow a hole in your head are one thing. But what interests me more, because we've kind of talked about that to death, right? There's only so much you can say once you get to the core of it, which is that companies don't have a vested interest in making better software when they have an existing user base and venture capital, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's more interesting is how you can just do it to yourself without those external forces. Yeah, I mean, animation isn't the only time I've done that, you know? But I need you to have a real answer to this. I need you to dance and perform and sing.
You need me to dig deep. Yeah, this is a tough one for me to answer because I have so consciously tried to avoid it to the genuine detriment of my career. There's a number of places that I could have locked myself into repeating the same process over and over, until I hated it. But
that's something that had to be learned. You don't just know to avoid that.
And the place that came from initially was the which is almost not related to this at all, but like the experience of not going to high school and then like pursuing my one thing until its insane logical endpoint, which left with me just being extraordinarily burnt out. Like not even smoldering ashes, but just kind of like scorch mark on the ground where there was once a guy level burnt out.
Yeah. Can't relate to that degree, thankfully. Although never say never, but yeah, you and Nelson, you piss me off. You'll just say shit like that offhandedly, and it's like I swear to God, you're just speed running life at this point.
That's the goal. I'm trying to.
That fucker retired from journalism before he was old enough to drink alcohol, if I'm not mistaken. What is actually wrong with him?
Oh man, yeah. You're not mistaken. I guess.
Yeah, that's just not right. That's just not right. Before you were asking about like the 2D aesthetics of how animations of mine look, and I don't really know what you meant by that.
I've only ever seen your guy in 2D except for that one aspect ratio video, but a lot of the stuff that you played with visually by necessity was Doodle adjacent.
Yeah.
And I was curious if you had any thoughts head full about how you were going to continue that in 3D or if you're just going to roll with it.
I mean, I really struggle to think of any examples of stuff that like was birthed by virtue of being 2D in nature.
This is a good podcast.
The fuck are you talking about?
We're just kind of going back and forth, struggling to think of examples of shit.
Well, but you're just saying a bunch of abstract shit, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting in the air on paper. Can you explain what you mean? Like in one fucking instance, can you explain? I don't know what you mean.
I don't know. It's sweaty in here. Listen.
Jesus Christ.
Can I throw something at you that I'm almost hesitant to go back when you talked about optimizing the fun out of the process? I think one of the few encounters that I can really think about having with that was large language models, using that to program, where like if I could...
So like GPT.
Exactly. If I can auto-generate program by typing a sentence, does that kind of kill the fun of actually programming? And the answer is yes. And the answer is also that they're not that good at generating programs of any complication. So I get to dodge that question. But yeah, it's like when I was first using it to generate boilerplate and solve problems for me, very small contained things like simple math functions and shit, it started to really bother me because the part that I really enjoy about programming is digging into weird arcane bullshit and trying to figure out how to make it work for me. So like Windows API arcane nonsense, like figuring out how to make Notepad render and all of that other shit. That's fun.
Yeah.
And part of that involves, if I want to learn how to do that, I have to dig through weird old documentation and forum posts from 20 years ago and all these places where this knowledge has been scattered. And a GPT has put all of that into a blender and let me, with some level of consistency, output it in a very homogenized way, stripped of all of that history. And that bummed me the fuck out when I first realized that I could do it, because then I had to justify the part of the process that I really enjoyed in terms of like how I spend my time. And my response to that has been largely to not use those tools. and like take the productivity hit because the theoretical productivity hit, because I would just so much rather learn the other way. There's not really a point in doing the things by just dictating them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I get it. It's just, it's a shame that we can't really build on this too much without just, presumably the reason you're hesitant to go into this is because it just leads into commentary on modern day AI bullshit.
Yeah.
Which is just, fuck that for so many reasons. Because like the closest I could have to an actual response to that would just be some variant of, looks at camera, gee, if only more people thought that way. And that's not interesting of an observation to make. But it does remind me of my relationship with the fucking interpolation video these days. If you're willing to open that can of worms.
Let's open it. Let's open it like a little can of soda and drink all the little worms in there.
Yeah. So that video is nearly at 15 million views now.
Jesus Christ.
Right. See, that's what I keep saying.
Uh-huh.
And if it wasn't at that many views and is steadily rising, I wouldn't think about this so much. But we don't pick our successes. And so this is where I am with this. And I'm not complaining, let me be clear. But it does bother me that that video was made by a very naive Julian who could not have possibly foreseen what the next couple of years had in store for us all. And I still pretty much stand by everything that I said in that video, but the trouble is that I think that retrospectively I'm coming at it from the completely wrong angle, because back then, you know, AI was not an existential threat to anything. It was just a really fucking annoying thing to me as an animator. And so that's how I chose to look at it. But nowadays, that conversation is fucking meaningless. Like it nothing drives me crazy more than seeing a bunch of people on any given social media telling other artists, like, here's how you witch hunt AI. Here's how you identify it in current year, and so you know who not to support. And it's like or just like explaining all of the merits specifically of like, this is why this is why art is more fucking awesomer than doing it this way. You know, it's a conversation we've been having since it first started to become a little scary, like a year ago, and it has stopped getting us anywhere forever ago. Because the least important thing about this entire conversation is whether it looks good or not. And so I rewatched that video of mine, and the entire point is explaining from an experienced person's perspective why it looks bad. And then I look at, you know, dozens of people doing it in current year for, you know, illustration or whatever else. And I just want to turn back time and delete that fucking video because I'm scared that I might have spurred that on a little bit. And I don't want to be contributing to the worst, most unhelpful part of the conversation, even if I believe all the things I said. It's not important anymore.
Yeah. I mean, hey, in fairness, I think that discourse would be bad whether you made that video or not, if that's any consolation.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, we live in hell. But yeah, I think it's also worth being specific in my paranoia that like part of the reason that these conversations about how to spot AI, they're very understandable, but like it's trying to catch a moving target by fixating on the part that is least in any one of our control. And it's led already to like people accusing people who have certain art styles of AI generating all of their art and shit.
Right.
Baselessly, because someone replicated that style with AI, and it's a mess. Like the bigger,
or worse yet, you just have an art style and it gets profiled a certain way. I've seen that happen too, where it's just like, this happens to look like the kind of thing that Mid-Journey would spit out if you prompted a certain way.
Yeah.
Imagine just being a vibrant airbrush painter in current year. You know, it must really suck for you right now.
Yeah. And like the thing that we're trying to defend when we do that is not like aesthetics specifically. The thing that we're trying to defend is people's ability to do shit, people's ability to do art and then engage with art on human terms instead of just being like, here's an image.
The point of art, you might say. Yeah, there's a very existential angle to this, which I do find interesting and concerning, but there's a much more direct and a much more concerning angle than any of that shit, which is the fact that this is no longer a philosophical conversation because it is directly changing the lives for the worse of countless people in multiple industries right now in and out of creative fields. And it kind of doesn't feel right or important to be fixating on why a thing doesn't look very good in your opinion, because you can get a bunch of people on Twitter to agree with you, or on YouTube or fucking wherever else in a friend circle. It doesn't matter, because enough people think it looks good enough that it's putting people out of a job. And that's kind of the thing that matters right now, you know?
Yeah. And also, like, existentially, I see a lot of people being like, well, only humans could do XYZ thing. The value of human art is that it can achieve heights that AI could never achieve. And like, I think that a lot of human art sucks dog shit. And I think that's actually fine and important and good to have.
If you don't have lows, you don't got highs.
Yeah, right? Like, not every single person is capable of making something objectively great at any point in time. But that doesn't mean that that thing is meaningless. And it feels like the part that we're defending is misplaced.
Yeah.
And part of this is a product of the fact that, like, some of the stuff that we have not been questioning is, hey, the space that we're having this conversation is a context void. Like, part of the entire problem is that we're only getting these images without context. So
it's a context void and also somehow an echo chamber at the same time.
Like, part of the issue is that we're realizing, hey, turns out we super value being able to engage with a piece of art with the idea that, oh, this was made by a person, and we get to like put the art in context with their other work if we want, or we can look at it and try and project the human's decisions on it, even if it's like a piece of shit post art. But we've been able to pretty much take that for granted until now, because even without context, if you're looking at something that looks like a painting, it's probably because it's a fucking painting. Whereas now that we have automated ways to replicate style and all this other shit, those are assumptions that you don't get to make anymore, and we have absolutely no way to fold that back into the work on, like, systemically. It's really difficult because on some level you are just, even if the person does state, hey, I made this way, that does require some amount of trust on both sides. And I don't think that's something that the structure of current social media is great at. It's really good at proliferating misinformation super fast.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the main thing that it's good at.
Not even misinformation, just information of any kind and of any value.
I don't believe in any information.
Yeah. I don't want to know.
That was an example of us both not knowing. I hope you all enjoyed that brief little stint there.
As much as I agree with everything that you are currently saying, it's just difficult to engage with it too much without like the looming reality of like... Like, if I just lost my job because like my job as like a template designer for fucking Squarespace or whatever is now a job that's being filled by, something that was trained on the work I've been doing for the past 5 years. None of what we just said fucking matters. The thing that matters to me right now is how am I gonna pay rent? And there's not really a clear answer for all the people who are being displaced right now, which is kind of my big concern.
Yeah, I think that's probably the concern that a podcast is least helpful for.
Yeah, of course. But that's why I'm only talking about it through the prism of this video I made, right? Because it drives me fucking crazy every time. Like, I still get people every so often, and it's like, and I have to stress, like, I appreciate it, but every time I get a comment or an offhanded mention from someone I know who's just like, yeah, I'm glad you made that video. It's so important to have that conversation these days. I want to fucking jump through the screen and No, it's not. It is actually the least important part of the conversation. I so desperately want us to pivot away from exactly the thing I was talking about. Because back then, yeah, that was as far as it went. Now it's like the beginning. It's like the most surface level shit. It's so nothing.
Yeah.
Stuff like that continuing to be a focus just makes it easy for people to continue focusing on the wrong things. I don't want to be contributing to that part of the conversation, the part of the conversation where everyone is just focused on why a thing doesn't look good, as opposed to what it existing is doing to human beings.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think that everything is going to be as simple as, oh, thing come in, people lose job. Because, like, the idea of being able to have this insane gigashit surplus labor, which is what it functionally is to the people that were worried about replacing people with AI. The idea that that's just going to come in and not fundamentally alter their business model, and like the markets that they engage in, is fucking ridiculous. Like seeing all of these video game executives be like, yeah, we think that like having crazy AI is really gonna cut down on our costs when we're making big gigashit video games. It's like,
right.
No, because like, yeah, for a minute that's gonna happen, but
yeah, maybe you might get 2 games out of it, maybe.
Yeah, but then, you know, that technology existing goes right for and making that part of their process much cheaper kills their one major advantage, which is being able to operate at giant gigashit scale. Because if you can make that part of the process cheap and you don't even need artists for it, that's going to be an everyone thing.
Right.
The more that you, and then I think that the incentives kind of flip, which is that like the more you use AI in your process, the more you become exactly like everyone else. It's not like a differentiator. It's not like an ace up the sleeve advantage anymore.
Thankfully, this is a new problem for the AAA industry. And so they have a lot of time to figure this out quickly, I think.
Oh yeah. There's no word I would more use to describe the AAA space than, you know, agile, which I say with all the venom and double meaning that I can conjure up. But yeah, like I do think that there is an arc that's been happening for a really long time, even without AI, where the people are becoming very invested in the process of making things as its own valuable experience and spectator sport, which is weird and not something that's existed very much outside of like DVD extras in very niche spaces. It didn't used to be.
More recently, like speed painting and stuff, maybe. But
exactly, yeah. There's an audience there that wasn't there before. And I think that part of the acceleration has been driven by, sludge is infinitely accessible, and watching someone make a thing and having some guarantees about the process by virtue of making them is like a pretty appealing thing in that climate. You get to reground yourself a little bit.
I can hear the tech bros hearing this right now and thinking to themselves how they can automate that as well.
Yeah.
Creating a fake narrative of creating their fake media.
It's called VTubing, and it's gonna a little more complicated than that. But there, specifically,
no. see, the thing is that VTubers are still like, you know, portrayed by human beings.
I want to be really specific. It's the automated neural network VTubers that are currently existing and streaming. And if you don't know about them, sorry for. Oh well, hey,
that's
sorry for
cool. Thanks for
ruining that for you.
Thanks for teaching me about that.
Yeah, they get to be responsive to chat using LLMs.
Wow.
And they have voices, because voice synthesis is a thing that you can do now, and it runs pretty much real time, and that's a thing that exists now, and we all have to kind of deal with that.
Who's that YouTuber who made videos fucking Quebblecop.
I really hate that series of syllables, man.
Yeah, it's really not good.
Does not roll off the tongue.
But that guy,
it kind of curdles off the tongue.
He's kind of calcifies on its way out. Yeah, he's a good example of this, right? He's going all in on making the most efficient slop imaginable, training an AI that looks like him and sounds like him and talks like him and games like him.
I think he's interesting because I do think that he's missed the point and he's performing for the wrong crowd if you're taking the position of someone who wants that to be successful. Like, if you're a person who wants that to be successful, like, you do the thing of like making a VTuber, which is like comfortably abstract, and having it focus very much on interacting one-on-one with the chat.
Right.
Because like that's the audience for that. You don't like make a big fucking stink of being like, it's like just yelling to all the people that hate you the most about the obnoxious new shit that you're doing, and then putting out Minecraft shorts, which even the people who are following you and interested don't want to watch because they're not like, they're tech bros that those announcements are being made for. They're not going to watch you fake commentate over someone's Minecraft gameplay.
But you can see the parallels that he sees, right? Like, for him, this is the same kind of thing as people who are creating a narrative around creating something, because this is like, that's kind of what he's doing, right? Mm-hmm. He's just creating a thing that replaces him that he owns, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like I'm the thing that sucks about all of this is that it's just so recursive, you know?
Yeah.
Any real explanation you can come up with or alternate way of looking at art is something that someone with a myopic view of art can come back to by saying, yeah, but we could get AI to do that too. And they're not technically wrong in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, how are 12-year-olds who are growing up with this tech making meaning out of it? Like, what are they finding in it? And
this is the same question I've had like 10 years ago, whenever like the Spider-Man finger family shit on YouTube was like everywhere. I mean, and now we just have, you know, like just like more optimized versions of that kind of slop, and mainly Cocomelon, which still awful, don't get me wrong, but I really just want to see what someone's brain looks like after like that's formative media for them as a child, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because that's at least like an interesting kind of fucked up, you know? It's like I cannot imagine what watching Spider-Man Elsa for 3 years whenever you're like 6 just does to your brain, you know? That's a case study. That's awful and interesting. But now it's I mean, like, we still have that now, but there's not really a funny angle to it. It's just.
I mean, we do have an answer for it. It's been relayed to me by several teacher friends, which is like, it turns out that raising a child on constant stimulation that is completely externally forced leads to that behavior continuing as they grow up.
I'm sure TikTok is unrelated to that,
but that's a different point. As far as AI shit, like, you know, kids who are growing up now, desecrating the art of fan fiction by having ChatGPT generating endless smut for them.
Oh boy.
This is I realized that was a weird example to go with. It is a specific.
No, it is a very real example though.
Yeah, but it's like the in that context, like, how you make sense of that as a person is by like almost entirely devaluing the end result of something like that on its own, because it is throwaway. It's as throwaway as any other 2-second joke that you come up with.
Yeah.
There's an extra special prestige placed upon products of effort, things that are provably real. And it's not in the way that I think a lot of people want it to be, where like it comes from some deep admiration of the human soul. No, it's like a value calculation, right? If you spent time making a thing and you tell me that, I'm gonna spend more time looking at it because I now have like a framework through which to engage with it that isn't just consumption.
But that's a very personal experience. That's not something that everyone engages with art on, and like not even you or me. We don't exclusively do that.
I want to be super clear. This is not a noble art is awesome thing. This is purely like it's gameplay. It's making things as gameplay. It's, you know, a thing that was generated holds different value than a thing that was made. I think that when I say repeatedly to the point where it's annoying that creativity has become a sport, I mean it in every possible sense, not just from like spectators looking at people who are good at what they do, but also just like that is the value that it holds.
Yeah, I agree. I'm hesitant to add on to this particular angle too much because I know that whatever we say will be outdated in a month.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, that is the entire reason. It's because I've had these conversations with you like a year ago, and none of that shit matters anymore. Just sucks. There's so many ways I can see this going, but speculating on it isn't really important. I just keep coming back to where we are now.
Yeah.
And that being the concerning thing, because I would like this to be cut because this is just me being a doomer now. But I don't see things getting better before they get worse, and I'm really not looking forward to seeing how that plays out for people. We have enough problems in the world already, and this is just I don't really know how to flip this into a positive outside the theoretical sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, existentially, I will continue to advocate for the same shit. I think that it's important for people to carve out very intentionally spaces for human expression where they can make those guarantees, because I think that like not divesting from context hellholes is gonna be part of what makes things worse before they get better. I think that getting better looks like treating tools and as creative spaces and being able to engage with art on that level, like very consciously changing the way that we engage with art to factor this in instead of just ignoring that it exists, because I don't think that there's no way out of it from that angle.
You know what, Billy? Don't cut this. That was a good response.
Okay, I will keep it in.
I smile.
Yeah, no, you're right. I still don't have anything to add on top of that. I mean, yeah, I suppose you're right. It's difficult, as is the case for basically anyone else who's being affected by this. It is difficult to separate these two things, even if it's healthy to do that. But yeah, that's part of, again, to tie it all back around, that's part of why that video existing in the way it does continues to bother me. But what's more miserable, just leaving it or making a follow-up? Right now,
double dipping.
You just imagine how fucking awesome it would be, Sam, to just be like, right now, like today, I come to you, I'm like, Sam, everything I'm making, fuck it. I'm making a follow-up to that interpolation video, and it's about AI. Full stop. Just gonna cover the whole thing.
I would immediately go over to my Google Calendar and mark another date in, how many years has it been since that video came out?
2 years.
All right, I mark a date 2 years from now and say, we're doing another follow-up then.
Yeah.
I just kind of set it to repeat every 2 years until the end of time.
Now you're thinking like a YouTuber.
Yeah.
I could be the AI guy instead of the interpolation guy.
Wow. That was a depressing sentence you just said. Holy shit, that knocked me back in my chair a little bit.
It's so like easy. I could so easily fill that role too. There's one of the many demons on my shoulder telling me that just give up.
You just gotta keep making YouTube Shorts responses to yourself forever.
Oh, you're so true.
That's what I'm fucking saying.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any reality in which a follow-up to that could be made that wouldn't need another update. Like if you go at it from a different angle, because that video was very limited in scope by design. It was about this tool in this application and why I didn't like it. So a follow-up, logically, in my mind, would be, instead of focusing on that, it would be more of a broad statement about why that doesn't matter anymore. And that would be it. It would just be a video that attacks the other video without, saying that any of it wasn't right. It would be about saying, yeah, I still basically stand by everything I said, like 90% of it. But it doesn't matter, and here's what I think we should be focusing on instead. And like, that's it. That would obviously still get outdated, but I don't think it would be as like disastrously outdated.
Yeah. The thing that I would only press for with a video like that is to do your very level best to not end it on the doomer note of like, it doesn't matter because everything's fucked. Part of the core of that video that I do think is good is just, misrepresented, is that making things is inherently cool. Artistic expression is an inherently cool thing to do as an action.
I don't think that I misrepresented it so much as I just treated it as a given because it still was back then.
Yeah, I think that like when I say misrepresented, I mean I think it got filtered through too many layers of things sucks. I think if this follow-up video were to be made, I would think and hope, I guess, that could somehow be the conclusion. Like the actual thing that matters, the reason that you stand by the parts of the video that you do is because like, and now I'm just going to say my own opinion and put it in your mouth, is that like,
new ground we're treading here.
It's good to make stuff, and we make stuff because we're fucking here too. That's it. Like, what, are we just going to die? Are we just going to die? Like, what?
It's possible.
Like, I don't know. That we could. I'm doing it right now, very slowly.
See, this is how scripts get made. This is how scripts get made. Is Sam will just say some shit like that, and then I'll say, no, that's good. And then that becomes like the whole conclusion. Is just, why do we make things? Because otherwise we could die, ? And then the roll credits.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, that's also part of the, again, like part of the initial shock of seeing AI video and music and images and all that stuff was like a lot of people who had tied their creative self-worth to the scarcity of their output. And like part of that, and part of seeing that be at least for a moment threatened, felt like threatening their meaning and purpose on this planet.
Yeah.
And I think that's very explicitly boundarying that around like, no matter what happens, this is still worthwhile.
Right, but that's exactly the tightrope dance that would make a video like this so difficult to make in the current climate. Because you would have to somehow balance emphasizing the philosophical angle of why we make art, the really pretentious angle, while not ignoring and being very conscious of the real life effect that it is happening on people right now as a way of living and bringing in income to support themselves, but simultaneously not focusing on that too much, because if you do, you end up in a doomer place because we're just in a bad place for that right now. Everything is changing and it's making a lot of people's lives worse. But like, how do you acknowledge and talk about that without talking about it too much or too little? There's no right answer to that, and so it would be a constant struggle in the writing, in the process of writing.
Here's what I would say is I don't know if it's actually a matter of too much or too little. I think it's about drawing the boundaries around what you can and can't cover. It's like when it comes to the labor issue here, like that is like all of these problems have to be solved individually and together. As far as the labor issue, like exactly how you put it. Yeah. We're in a pretty fucking bad place for that right now. And the specifics of how, like, that is an extremely political, I mean, all of it is, but like that's a very specifically political problem that's probably going to be outside the scope of your follow-up to interpolation video.
Imagine coming back and the response is entirely just like, this is why we need to vote for Biden again.
No, that's the final line of your video. And that's why we gotta vote for Biden again.
No, yeah, because if we don't make art, we could die, I guess. We have to vote for Biden. And then the credits roll.
Man.
Maybe he'll die during this next term.
What if he dies while you're making your video and you have to throw away
Dude, I'm surprised he made it those first 4 years.
This is good. This is good material.
Well, I like that we're talking about it as if it's a given that he's gonna win. We don't know that.
Let's spend some time making predictions.
Yeah.
So we can just really age this as poorly as possible.
It's a podcast, dude. It's a podcast. We're not making these to last.
You know what? Y'all should believe everything I say about everything outside of my subject matter expertise. I think that's the point of a podcast.
I hope that in 10 years, when I'm a completely different person and I've grown and changed substantially, people pull up like the worst parts of this podcast and say that like I should never work again. I see that and I'm just like, no, that's fair. And then I just kind of delete my socials and like it's not like no one made a big thing out of it. It's not like I got canceled or anything. I just got like a DM from someone and they were like, That was kind of a weird joke you made once, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go work at McDonald's. Sorry about that.
That would be really cool. I think, yeah, I don't know. If y'all could just clip out the part where we talked about sex offenders for 10 minutes, but don't include the part where I say it's a joke, and just kind of forward that to my employers every time I get a new job, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
How goes the job hunt?
Oh, right. This is a thing that's happening. So
we can't get too into the specifics for obvious reasons, but it's a thing that's happening.
Yeah, I reopened myself for availability for work because of a move, and I was going to try and worm my way into a little Canadian work visa.
Yeah, we both just visited Canada at the same time. No relation. We didn't see each other. We're not that close.
Yeah. Yeah, we were just kind of there at once, and that was enough.
No, we kind of just like planned around it to make sure that we wouldn't run into each other.
Yeah.
Like it's bad enough that I have to fucking record with you every other week.
Yeah.
I was not about to like see you in person. Like I made sure to hit you up on Discord like, hey, I'm going to be on this subway at this time. Don't take the subway here.
Yeah. It was really, and that was a tough dance to pull off, because there were times I'd be hanging out with someone, and then I'd look at my phone and it's like, fuck, he's within 10 miles of me. I can't do that. We gotta move.
We started using like share my location on maps and shit so that we could like check, like, because we needed to keep like a proximity away, you know?
Yeah. Like if you ever held two magnets together with the same kind of polarity and they all like push each other, that's the kind of thing we were trying to replicate.
Yeah.
Our friendship is so strong, and
that experience was so strong that we both want to move to Canada so we can keep doing that.
Exactly.
But anyway,
yeah, job hunt. I redid my portfolio, put it out there. Turns out not that many game dev jobs in Canada that are also so specific that they satisfy the requirements for immigration. Good news is I don't actually need that, it turns out, to go to Canada for many months. So I'm just gonna roll with it. I'm just gonna
fucking fuck around. You're gonna ball, I guess.
I'm gonna visit and see what happens. Yeah, I'm gonna visit and ball. So if there's anyone listening to this,
all
Canada,
right, okay.
Remember, if you see Julian, tell him to get the fuck away from me.
I thought you were going to be like, so if there's anyone listening in Canada who needs a roommate.
No. No. Hey, listener, we're not that close.
Preferably who's related to like a sex offender, because then we can like, we can really help each other out.
I need to get my business started.
Yeah.
You're looking for venture capital. I'm looking for capital offenders.
Oh my God. I think